I've always been a reader. I was an early reader. And so books have always been like a big thing in my life. And I have known that I wanted to write since I was like 6 years old. So there's not a lot of time between me becoming literate and me wanting to be a writer. It's like 3 years maybe. So I've always thought about books, both just like the pleasure of them, but how they work. Since I was very small, like reading C.S. Lewis, like Chronicles of Narnia, I have been like, how do these things work? That is just how my brain has always kind of functioned.
Okay, so when you're 6 and you're reading Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, what are you thinking of like, this is how this works? Because I didn't start thinking about how books worked until like yesterday. So I'm curious, like, as a child, how you were thinking about
Well,
that.
I was thinking about like why do we see certain kids at certain time? Why are some like things held from us until like the next book or the next book in the series? I just had a lot of questions about like why was I getting the story when I was getting the story?
You're working towards this goal of becoming a published author. As you're reading other books, are you can you enjoy a book even if you don't like how it works?
So, yes. I mean, if I don't like how it works, I'm probably not enjoying it. But I do believe in like being a fan of like a book like of reading and literature first. Um I remember, I don't know when this was, but my very good friend Justin Torres was like the problem with a lot of people in MFA programs. We were in an MFA program when he said this, so it must have been like 2009 or 2010, and he was like, is that they don't read for pleasure anymore. They
Mm.
are just reading like a writer. And I always read for pleasure first. It's
Okay.
usually like I am deep into a book and then I'm like, wow, this POV, like, wow, she's doing it.
If you're trying, like, if you're working on something, like, oh, this author did a great job of this kind of point of view, like, I want to go back and read this and kind of like figure it out from a writer's standpoint.
Yes. So often I'll be like, I have a challenge. I need to cover like a lot of time really quickly, for instance. And I will think of a book I love, probably written by Edward P. Jones or,
Right.
or, or Toni Morrison, or, I have my favorites. And so
Okay.
I'll be like, oh, let me just read like 50 pages really quickly, just to be reminded, like, how do you handle time on a basic level? Because I think sometimes it's like the micro things that I will feel like, oh, I forgot how to do this, or I just need to be reminded of like a way to do it. Not like I do it exactly like them. But yeah, so I often will think of somebody, or I'll phone a friend, I'll be like, what are some books that do this very well? I think that's like one of the best things that are in writers group chats that maybe the world does not see. People put it on, threads or Instagram sometimes too. They ask the world.
Yeah.
But I find that the books that writers have top of mind are not necessarily all books that came out in the last like 5 years.
Right.
And I find that to be very useful because everybody is like susceptible to trends and writers are no different. So it might be a book in the last 2 years that was put out that does POV very well, but everybody is thinking about the way that that book does POV versus a book
Right.
that came out 100 years ago that does POV very well.
Right.